Alright guys, I'm Justin.
I'm Lee.
I'm Eric.
I'm Carl.
And on today's episode, we're going to go over some mid to early 2000s remakes and give our opinion on them. This episode was nominated by Dan. So this is going to be a pretty lengthy episode. So get you a drink, get you some popcorn, and join us as we talk remakes on today's episode of Welcome to Horrorland.
Peace.
Welcome to Horrorland.
Alright, so we had like 70s and 80s. You really have that whole, a lot of innovative stuff. That's when we get our big characters like Jason, Leatherface, Michael, Freddy. But then it's like as we get into the late 80s, you just get sequels. It's just a lot of sequels. We get in, of course, early 90s as sequels again. And then as you get into late 90s, everyone knows we get Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, stuff that really revigorates the horror genre.
Yeah.
And then it's like we get to the early 2000s and directors just sit there with their hands in their pockets and they're like, let's remake everything because we have no new ideas.
Yep.
So today we're going to go over the 12 films here in front of you. These are just some. This is not all. If this video gets enough likes and if you guys want to see a part 2, there's definitely enough remakes from the early 2000s to do a part 2. But these are just the 12 we settled on for today. So we'll just kind of go through each one. We've each rated on a level of 1 to 12. 1 being what we felt was the best. Not necessarily the best remake, but just the best film. 12 being what we considered the worst. So we'll just kind of go in order of the release. So first here is going to be 13 Ghosts. This movie was released on October the 26th of 2001. It had a $42 million budget, but made $68 million at the box office. So made a little bit of money, not as much as some of the rest of these on here. It's sitting at a 19% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 5.6 out of 10 on IMDb. So what did we think of this one, guys?
I thought it was cinematically speaking, it was well filmed. I think it's very underdeveloped. I don't think there's a whole lot of character development, and I wish they would have went deeper on the ghosts. You get an idea of the backstory of the ghost, but not really deep. Not deep enough for me. But, now having said that, I thought Matthew Lillard was really good. I thought the cinematography was good, but it's not something that I would watch, again, probably. I'm not a big ghost guy either, so probably not be something I'd watch again.
Well, I've watched it 5 times, so I thought a little bit more of it than you did. I love the concept, but like him, I did feel like it wasn't developed as well as it should have been. If you could have gone deeper into the ghost, I mean, obviously the ghost is the star of the film, even though Matthew Lillard's in it. Everybody was wanting to see the ghost, not Matthew Lillard. And they did do a couple. Me and Carl talked earlier about a couple really cool kills in it. And if y'all haven't seen where the glass cuts the dude in half, you haven't lived till you've seen that. So
That's great.
Yeah, but overall, I felt like it was a good concept that they just didn't put the time in to get the most out of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the development of the ghosts. But I actually rated it as second on my list. And mostly because I thought some of the effects were really good and realistic, even though... and I just thought the house in general was really cool.
It was cool, wasn't it?
Matthew Lillard was really good in it, and there are movies that I don't particularly care for him in. So, but I thought he did a good job, and I thought it was kind of cool, the way the uncle played in the movie but came back in the end. Like, I kind of thought that part was cool. So, it was a 2 for me.
Yeah. So this one I put as number 10. So kind of the same thing as Eric and Carl, like the ghosts. I mean, it's called 13 Ghosts. And really you get 5 ghosts is really all you see. You have the torso you see none of aside from him just kind of slinking across the floor. The mother and son, there's absolutely nothing on them.
Goliath was really well developed. That's the only one they really focused on was Goliath.
Yeah.
Most of it.
Yeah. And I mean, we got a pretty good scene there with, is it the Jackal?
Yeah.
He was pretty good too.
And the hammer, I think. The hammer was showcased
but,
quite a bit.
But there, like I said, there was some we just didn't hardly see at all. So, I mean, I like the story. This was, like I said, 2001. So, nostalgia-wise, this is one of my favorite movies on the list just because I kind of grew up with it. But I rated it pretty low just because of the ghosts. Like I said, 91 minutes. I would have liked to have seen this been like 105. and kind of cut down that opening scene, and then get some ghost development in there, and then maybe see, even if we don't. Yeah. Even if all the ghosts don't get their own kill throughout the film, kind of show them where that really would have been something nice.
Well, I believe that there's a TV show in development right now.
I've heard that, yes.
That they're going to focus each episode on one of the ghosts. So, that is something I've heard, and I don't know if that's true or not.
I've heard that too, and I do look forward to if that happens, but at the same time, it's almost like 24 years later, too little, too late.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to have the same characters.
You wonder if the interest is going to be there.
Exactly. Because, this was not well received when it came out.
No.
Really none of these remakes, except 2 that I know of on this list, were well received when they came out.
Yeah.
So
they were all financially successful.
Yeah,
almost
every single one of them. Yeah. So, all right.
I will add one last thing to it that we did not talk about. As far as ghost boobs go, I give it about a 2 because they were pretty awesome on the ghost boobs. There was a good setting there.
And now for a weird sidetrack, everyone, I'm going to do this for every film because you will see there's some of these that I'm not going to be kind to. This one got nominated for some things. Unfortunately, some of them weren't great. Shannon Elizabeth was nominated for a Stinker Award for Worst Supporting Actress.
Oh, I like Shannon Elizabeth.
She wasn't bad in it.
Hurts my feelings for her.
And the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards voted in 2002 winner for Best Makeup and Creature Effects, but it was also nominated for Worst Film. So, there's that.
Yeah. This was done, Dark Sky did this one as well, which did, they did like Return to House on Haunted Hill. They'd really done a good group of films. None of their films just absolutely are like the worst films ever made.
No.
But a lot of them, like I said, they weren't well received. So, but I feel like this one was just, it came from the 1960s. I don't feel like people so much view this as a remake of the original just because the original's so old.
Because it's not a remake in any sense of the word.
Yeah,
really.
It borrows the name, but it doesn't have the same content.
I will say Tony Shalhoub was horribly miscast in that movie. He should have never been the father in that movie. I was not invested in his character even a little bit in that movie. And he's a great actor. I'm not knocking Tony Shalhoub. I'm saying in this film he was not great.
But
anyway.
All right, so we'll move on to number 2. Number 2 is going to be The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This one was released on October the 17th of 2003. It was done with a budget of $9.5 million and made $107 million at the box office. So a huge success. A huge success. But even with the success, it sits at a 37% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.2 of 10 out of on IMDb.
It's criminal.
It is. So
much better movie.
Yeah. I give it a slow golf clap. It was excellent. But anyway,
I rated it as my second favorite. I thought it was well done. I'll be honest with you, the only reason I watched it initially was Jessica Biel and the wife beard. I'm not gonna lie. Then once I watched it, I realized it was very well done. Well, I guess here's where we start getting hate. A lot of ways I liked it better than the original, and I hate to say that, but it's true. Some of the grittiness and graininess of the original, I think, far exceeds anything anybody else has done in the franchise with it. But I enjoyed the character development better. And the Kemper kill's ridiculous. When he turns around, he's got Kemper's face on. And it was just, I loved it. It's my number 2 selection. But like I said, and now in all fairness, I need to just make an open admission. I'm 61. So a lot of the movies I like have sentimental attachment to them that I saw on the big screen when they originally came out. So I'm going to be more invested in those than some of the others, and the more invested I am in the original, probably the less kind I'm going to be to the remake.
For sure.
As much as I hate to admit it, I'm in the same boat as Carl. For me, this movie was better than the original. I've watched the original more times than I care to count. The original does have that documentary feel to it that gives it a little more realism, but I'll be quite honest with you, I don't go to a Texas Chainsaw movie looking for realism. I go to for the same reason all of y'all go.
Blood and guts and chainsaws.
Yeah,
There you go.
And you just had more of everything in that movie, and I thought it was excellent, really well done. Something we haven't brought up about this movie is this started a whole remake trend. I mean, they'd already kind of started it at this point, but this guy, the guy that did Texas, he went on to do Friday the 13th remake, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
And I think he did a third remake, and I don't remember what it was. I'd have to look it up.
Not to mention, out of all the ones that preceded this, you had House on Haunted Hill and
Yes.
and all of that. But I think this is probably the most beloved and well-known original film.
It was.
Like, even if you're not a fan of horror, you know what Texas Chainsaw is from the 70s.
Absolutely.
Like, so I feel like this one is the first. It's the biggest remake up until its time, and it's one of the, it is the first remake of a one of our like big four,
Classics.
big five classics,
Yeah.
such as your Michaels and
Freddy,
yeah,
Jason.
yeah.
The shine had really been knocked off of Leatherface more than any of the rest of them, to be honest with you. At this point,
Yeah, really.
Because of the
some
beginning,
the,
or,
the sequels. that
yeah.
were-
if most people can go through Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street and say, "Oh, this is my favorite. That's my favorite." Leatherface. I'm not saying that they're not good movies. So before everybody roasts me alive, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that for most people, everybody's pretty much universally the first one is their favorite, and it's most it's best done.
it's the most well received.
up until this movie came out, I should say.
And then they tried jamming people in the movie that didn't belong to,
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey and Neil Zellweger.
Yeah.
They tried to bolster a bad movie with a face.
Yeah.
And I don't think that.
I think horror is the biggest genre that you cannot do that with. A face makes absolutely no difference in horror. Really.
Not to us.
I mean, honestly, I think to most, I just don't think it adds very much. So,
In a true horror fan, it's not going to resonate
Yeah.
well.
what do you think of this one, Lee?
Well, I totally disagree with you guys, which is not uncommon. So, I actually gave it a 10 on my list out of 12. And the reason being, I don't like any of the Texas Chainsaw movies. And that's just me because I know that that character was based on a real life event in Texas. And I know that because when my mother was in dental school, or dental hygiene school, she actually took impressions of the corpse of the original killer. And so, and Justin will tell you, I'm not a big fan of home invasion movies or anything that's more realistic. I'm probably not going to be a fan of. And I don't know where that comes from, but that's just my perception of it. So
this one, it was a success at the box office, but everyone kind of, hated this movie, and I feel like this would have been, because the original is so, it's such a iconic film for horror.
Yeah.
This would have been much better if it just kind of stole from Texas Chainsaw and they called it Cannibal with a Chainsaw or anything other than Texas Chainsaw. It having that name killed it. Even though it's not a bad movie, I feel like so many people compare it to the original, and the hitchhiker's not the same. They changed that portion of the story. They changed the portion where, the dad's not just cooking barbecue anymore, that's made, he's the sheriff. And they changed certain aspects of it, and people never really gave it a shot. But if you watch this as just a standalone film, I think it's great. And I rated it number 1 on my list. This is probably one of my favorite remakes. I remember going with my parents to watch this at the drive-in. It was probably too little to be watching it, but I would have been 9 at this point. So, but I remember this movie very, very vividly, and I love it. This is, like I said, out of these 12, it was my number 1. I love this as far as a remake.
That one character, you hated that guy more than you hated Leatherface by the end of that movie. He was evil personified in that movie, and he was, what's his name again?
Arlie Ermey.
Yeah, well, he said.
He's a real life. If nobody knows him, everybody should know him. This dude's freaking iconic.
He was
He's
a real
legit
one, yeah.
badass American Marine, and he was. He ate, slept, and breathed the Marine Corps. He was legit. And
what movie was he in? What
Full Metal Jacket.
Thank you, Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
And this one, they followed it up with Texas Chainsaw at the beginning, and that's another one. I love that one.
Yes,
It's not a remake. It doesn't go.
Or what's her name? Black-headed lady.
Black-headed lady. I don't know.
Yeah, Dado.
Maybe.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
I can't think of it.
I don't remember.
I can't think. I like the movie, but I don't.
It
Didn't have anybody notable in it, like a Jessica Biel.
It's hard for me
she
to
might
keep
have
track
became notable later. Yeah. The beginning is the one where they're going into the army. The one is he's trying to get his draft card and trying to go back into the military and go fight. And,
Which
and
one was the one where the
Leatherface.
girl inherited the house?
That's Texas Chainsaw. I think that's like the 2009.
That's the one I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
the one where it was supposed to be set in the 70s
Yes,
and she has her cell phone.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I
So-
got it confused on that one.
Yeah, but you look through here, and they did Texas Chainsaw the reinvent, then 3D, then Leatherface, and not all of them have been great.
No.
Great plays.
No.
Part 3 had a great trailer.
Yeah. I mean, Part 2 is one of my
One of
favorite
the
movies
most-
of all times. As much as people hate that, like I love Part 2.
What a weird movie.
it was,
I didn't want
but-
to get off on a tangent talking, but I mean, I could talk for an hour about Part 2, how weird that
It
movie
is a weird movie, but I mean, I love, like, you scratched my plate. Like, just Bill Moseley's character in that makes that movie for me. But we'll save that for another, because it's not a remake. But
Yeah.
all right, so we'll move on to number 3 on our list, which is going to be Dawn of the Dead. It came out March the 19th of 2004 with a budget of $26 million, making 102.3 million at the box office. So another one that made a ton of money. It sets at a 76% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb, making this one the highest rated across the board on the internet.
for us as well. It was
Yes,
nice.
yes, for us
Yeah.
as well.
It
So
was our number one, almost universally, almost.
Yeah, I gave it's my number one.
It's my number one too.
It's that was I love the Romero movies, all of them, and this one in particular. When I saw it on the big screen in like '79, whatever it was just scary. You know, the world's gone to hell, and this is what you got left. And you know, the thing about the original, you had 3 people crowded up in a mall doing their thing, and this one, I liked that it expanded that. You know, I loved the casting. I like Ving Rhames. I thought, and Sarah Polley. I thought they did a great job casting. At first, I wasn't a big fan of the Fast Zombie. I don't know. Maybe that's
it
parts.
was one of the first times it had been done,
Yeah.
really. I mean,
And
before that, they had all been walked.
first.
Yeah.
And then this
Okay,
came
And I think
right
part
after.
of that is sentimentality, but I think another part of that is deep down inside, who the hell wants a zombie that can run 30 miles an hour chewing at your ass? I mean, that's
We
scary.
wouldn't last
Yeah.
no time if that was
You know,
that was,
yeah,
there would be nobody left on the planet at that point.
I mean, you had a zombie with one arm, and he's killing people.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Oh,
like,
you forgot the one with no legs. That
Yeah,
jumped
that
in
just
out of the pipe.
dropped down
That was
out of the
awesome, by the
pipe.
way. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
But I thought it's very well made. I thought the cinematography was good. The script was pretty strong. The kills were great. I liked some of the ingenuity that they used as far as turning that shuttle bus into escape vehicles. I thought that they did a really good reinvention, not a cut for cut copy. And I really appreciated it for that. And for that reason, it was my number one.
For me, I can tell everybody why this movie is so well rated. Horror movies get no respect. I think we can all agree on that. It's universally looked down on and universally talked bad about. If you watch this movie through and through, you're going to find out it's not a horror movie, it's an action movie. If you look at it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's no
It really
scene that
was.
you're like, oh my God, I'm so scared. No, there's nothing like that in it. I think as close as they get is the woman that they bring in off the truck, the really big lady who
Yeah.
like dies and then comes back. That was legitimately scary for about half a
That
second.
and when she had the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
comes
baby,
out.
yeah. zombie baby.
Yeah. But for the most part, this is an action movie. It's not. That's the reason why you got such a high rating on it, in my opinion, anyway. That's why it's universally beloved, is because most people don't look at it as a horror movie. They look at it as an action movie. But it is an excellent action movie. It's way up there for me. Everything from concept to execution. As much as I'm not a big fan of Zack, whatever his last name is.
Snyder.
I can't think of names
Is it
tonight for some
Snyder?
reason. Zack Snyder, thank you.
Awesome.
I'm not a huge fan of a lot of his movies, but he killed it with this one. He was absolutely fantastic.
I just thought it was a good movie, and I think, like you said and brought up, I think it's more because it is more action and not so. It's not a dark, jumpy,
Yeah.
scene type of movie. And
5-cent jump scares.
yeah, and as disturbing as the zombie baby was, it was kind of cool because
Yeah.
can't think of anything else where it's been done. So
I think that was the very first time.
The eyes. I remember the eyes.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
effectual those eyes were.
and just how he kept her hidden for so long, and nobody realized that she was turning and
Yeah.
the mother. So yeah, I just thought that it was really well planned.
I think
and
there's only
played.
been one other time that I've ever seen Zombie Baby used, and that was in Z Nation, which y'all probably have
Yeah.
not seen.
I have seen it with Brad
I
Pitt.
have not.
No, it's World War Z.
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
World War Z? Is that
Okay.
Z
Yeah.
Nation's a TV show?
It's a TV
No, I
show.
haven't seen it. Never mind.
Mhm.
I'm wrong.
Yeah, but that's the only other time I've seen a baby zombie. Probably the only time I will see one. But anyway, sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No.
I'm real good at interrupting people.
But yeah, that's why it was on my number one.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead for me was number 2. Same as all they said. It's a really good it's not real jumpy. While I like the original, the original for me is really slow in parts.
Yeah,
I mean it's what, like almost 2.5 hours long.
Yeah,
I mean
it's
it's a
long.
very long movie, and it's very iconic. It's very good, but I am more 80s, 90s, early 2000s just because of my age. So this one, when I watch it, a lot of times I like remakes a lot better than the originals, even though the originals are iconic. Just again because I look at the original and I'm like, that's kind of slow, and that was kind of my opinion with this one. And I really did like this one for what it was. So it was number 2 on my list, and like we said, I think that makes it the number 1 rated between the 4 of us, along with the number 1 rated with the internet fans on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. So
I did want to bring up something that you were talking about. Justin's a lot younger than me and Carl are. And something I've noticed with all the remakes that they've done, they did these to reconnect with the younger audience. Mm-hmm. They already had us. Mm-hmm. We were part of that 70s,
80s slasher.
And they were losing their young audience. Nobody wanted to see Jason 552. Only me and him did. So they wanted to do something to bring in that younger audience, and that's where these remakes came about. They're like, let's reintroduce Leatherface to a whole new generation. Let's reintroduce Jason. And
we're doing it again with Halloween. It started back in 18.
Yeah.
And Leatherface too, because they got the Netflix.
Exactly.
Yeah, you'll start to see them all.
Oh yeah, all of them.
Churning them back over
Yeah.
again. We flipped. They're right now. They're in the middle of making Friday the 13th TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think Freddy is supposedly supposed to have a series made by Rob Zombie. It's called Fred. It's supposed to be like a prequel.
I think
to him.
that's fake. I think that's a fake.
I've seen that. I've seen it for years now, so I don't know if it is or not.
Yeah.
But
I will poke my eyes out before I watch that. With thumbtacks. Oh, and for a good thing for this movie, the Golden Trailer Awards, it was nominated and won Best Horror Film in 2004.
Nice.
So that was, they were nominated for like 14, won the one. Well, no, 17 nominations and won film, won Golden Trailer Award. It was just, like I said, it was a special movie to me. I loved it.
All right. So we'll move on to the next one, and that's going to be House of Wax. This, much like 13 Ghosts, it's considered a remake because there is another movie under the same name from 1953, I believe it is.
Vincent Price.
But it is not really a remake in the least. But we still put it on the list. It was released on May the 6th of 2005. Had a budget of $40 million with a box office of $70.1 million. It sits at a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb. Mm-hmm. So kind of run of the mill there. It actually scores a little higher on IMDb than a lot of the others, but that Rotten Tomato score really drags it down.
The only reason why is they killed Paris Hilton.
That's it. That's the best thing about the movie.
Yeah, but she was awful in it. Sorry,
Yes,
She's awful in everything.
Yeah, no.
But this came around the time, if I'm not mistaken, she had like the VH1 reality series Simple Life, and she had really been on the rise. So to have her name, again, while it didn't add name value for a lot of people, it did others because it tried to kind of cross branch, like we said, that younger generation, the girls in it that kind of that watched, that were into the reality. They're like, "Ooh, Paris Hilton's in it, let's go watch it." Yeah. But it bombed. It was not. Again, no one liked this movie when it came out. So.
And
time has been kind to it, though. I will say
20 years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's honestly, I can't lie. I voted number 6 out of 12. It was, if you look at it on its own, it's not competing with the Vincent Price film. That movie's a whole different thing. It's Vincent Price trying to be an artist. It wasn't a horrible movie. I thought cinematically it's filmed really well. I didn't think the cast was great. I think Paris Hilton was, like they said, a draw for 15-year-old girls. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was well done. It was at least coherent. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it is panned by the Razzies. It was Paris Hilton in 2010 got Worst Actress of the Decade. It was nominated for Worst Picture, Paris Hilton won for Worst Supporting Actress. It was nominated for Worst Remake or Sequel. But here's where we go off the rails. Teen Choice Awards. It won for Best Thriller.
Mm-hmm.
It won for Choice Movie Actor, Action Adventure, which was Chad Michael Murray. It nominated Alyssa Cuthbert, Jared Padalecki, and of all things, Choice Movie Breakout Performance by a Female, Paris Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're saying. It's everywhere. It is not hot garbage, but it's pretty warm.
Well, I'm kinder to it than that. I thought it was an atmospheric movie. I felt like that it was what a horror movie should be, as far as what it was trying to convey, which is some scary moments in it. I mean, I legit jumped a couple of times in it. I really loved the scene where he had the guy strapped into the chair. That made me squirm. And if a movie can do that to me, it's done something right, because I don't really squirm much anymore.
Yeah, we're pretty
way too old for that. Yeah,
jaded.
But yeah, like I said, I am with Carl in that it's not my greatest. You know, I'm not like going to be sitting up here saying it should have been nominated for an Academy Award or nothing.
But it's a way better movie than a lot of these on this list.
I think that
it's better film than majority.
Yeah, I think it gets shit. Excuse my language, for Paris Hilton. That's what I think. I think the years have not been kind to Paris Hilton. People don't like her anymore, and people remember this movie and her in it. And so I think that's why it gets a lot of crap.
It is.
But that's what my feelings about it.
I had it at an 8, so it's just kind of mediocre on my list. I mean, I thought it was cool. Everything they did build out of wax, and that was a real thing. So I thought that part of it was really cool. It did have a lot of jump scenes in it for me, because I still jump a lot of times at movies that we watch. But I just thought I thought she was a terrible actress in it, and I think that was her first major film as far as a movie role. So that kind of ruined it for me. Just I think I had higher expectations than what it was. Yeah. But I thought the camping scene, in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that was a pretty cool scene, and it was very realistic. So yeah, I mean, definitely pros and cons for me, but yeah, overall I thought it was just cool how much they built out of wax.
Yeah.
Honestly, like a little town.
Yeah, little town.
Yeah. So I rated this one number 5 on my list. This is another one just nostalgic more so than anything for me. This 13 Ghosts, like Ghost Ship, all that stuff kind of came out, Blu-ray around the, these were some of the first Blu-rays in my collection when I started collecting stuff. Like, I grew up with this one. I really did like it. I enjoyed it, but I did have to rate it number 5 again because of some of the other things on this list.
Sure, yeah.
But I mean, I agree with everybody with I think this movie was made to connect with a younger audience. They thought at the time, let's get us a reality star in there, and they put Paris Hilton, which at the time you had other reality stars that would have done much better for this
Nicole
film.
Richie
And and now now this film has been, I don't want to say blacklisted, but blacklisted, and no one talks about it. No one really cares about it. And I feel like y'all said, I think that's mainly because she's in it. And
it's not fair because there are a lot of positives about the movie.
There is. I mean, it's not overall. It's not a bad film, and I mean it's definitely better than some of the other ones we'll get into here in just a second, including the next one that we're going to get into, which is The Fog.
Oh boy.
So this one was released October the 14th, my birthday of 2005. It had a budget of $18 million with a box office of $46.2 million. Sits at a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 3.7 out of 10 on IMDb, making it the lowest rated on the list.
So good reason for all of that.
Yes.
I think it's the lowest rated on our list.
It is the lowest rated between us 4.
Yeah, it's 12th out of 12.
Yeah.
For everyone
So this movie, historically, the original John Carpenter, The Fog, that was a time when you had everything in the world was coming out. We had 2 local cinemas in town, the Arcade and the Columbia. They had 3 screens that were incredible. It's very Art Deco. very scary. The heavy burgundy drapes, the whole 9 yards. I saw all those movies. The Fog, Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween 3. All those movies were shown in those theaters. So I have a huge sentimental attraction to it. That, and also I saw all these with my late wife. So it's even more so. So I'm trying to not let that play into my judgment of this as much as it's going to. But this movie's trash. I don't have not one redeeming thing to say about this movie. If they banned it, burned it, and sent it straight to hell, I'll ride with it in the bus. I have nothing good to say about it. I absolutely hated it. I thought it was just an abortion of a great movie. And
it was really a useless remake.
It was. It played nothing. Now, having said that, the original was very, very atmospheric, very eerie. It was creepy. Was it the best horror movie ever made? Nope. But I have a sentimental attachment to it. And the one thing that movie did that this movie did not do was it touched me on kind of like an emotional level where it was scary. There were times when you felt bad for characters and times where you just didn't figure out what was going on. And, it was it was a really good movie for me. But this movie just, they just mailed it in. It's like, let's throw The Fog on it. John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, this would be, a banger, and it just stunk.
Yeah, it wasn't good. I think the reason why me and Carl are particularly hard on this movie is for me and him, The Fog is probably, the original Fog is probably in our top 10 easily. Maybe even top 5, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'd have to really give that some thought. But the point is, man, this movie. The only redeeming thing about the whole thing is Tom Welling's in it, and I'm a fan of Tom Welling. Other than that,
Smallville.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Smallville. So he goes all the way back. But I have, much like Carl, I have nothing nice to say about this movie. It was an abortion of a movie. It should have never happened. I think they had the IP sitting there and they said, hey, Tom is popular right now. We got this movie sitting here. Let's just do that. And boy, they shouldn't have. They really shouldn't have. Like I said, I can't add any more bashing than already has been done. I will move on.
It was actually the 11th on my list. I have one movie on this list that I despise more than this. But I actually just watched this movie for the first time this past week, just for this episode.
Oh,
and yeah, it was not good. But what's even worse was the ending. Yeah. Like, the ending makes 0 sense whatsoever.
It's like they forgot to make an ending. They're
like,
crap!
Crap! Let's just make her a ghost.
Like, it wasn't real.
It's a dream. Just negated everything else from the entire movie. So, yeah, it was. It was bad.
Maybe that's about when M. Night Shyamalan come along. They're like, "Hey, everything's got to have a twist."
Yeah,
she's a ghost. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
This one, of course, I rated this one number 12 as well, but I'm a little easier on it than everybody else, just because, again, watching this one, I did like the storyline that they twisted into it with, like, the ghosts being on the people of the Fog. They had the leprosy and they were supposed to pay. I did like that, but and it would have been rated higher had the ending have been better. But the ending is just, like you said, there is no ending. It's atrocious. And the saddest thing about this is they put Tom Welling in it. He's doing Smallville around about this time, and it completely screwed his acting career. Like, he finished Smallville, and he has not done anything since because, like, everyone was like, "Oh, you were in that Fog remake, and you suck." But, like, he was doing the best he could with what he had to work with.
Yeah, and it wasn't much.
But his acting was not bad in it.
The acting's not terrible in it. But, like, the people from the Fog, the CGI in it, even by 2005 standards, sucks.
Yeah,
I mean, if you watch the original, the people look so much better because they're not CGI.
No, they're people. They're real characters coming out of the Fog.
And that's the thing. But this is the worst movie on the list, but I don't hate it as much as everybody else, just because if you watch it for what it is, I like the story it has up until about the last 10 minutes where she just becomes a ghost. They've been dating for all these years, she's left town, now she's back, and all of a sudden, the last 5 minutes of the movie, it's like, oh, she's been a ghost, and You don't know if she's a ghost. Did she sacrifice herself to get rid of the people of the fall? Like, you don't know. And for that, it just drags it all the way down. And there's a lot of other really loose things in there. Like, finding the artifacts really added nothing. Like, they found the hairbrush and they found was it a watch or whatever?
Yeah,
like, all that added nothing to it.
There was no weapon.
You never got any kind of a payoff with that. It wasn't like, we're going to use these to defeat you. It was just, oh, boy found it, and like, it would have been one thing if they found it and it released the fog. But like, the fog is coming, the fog is there, we kill somebody, and then the next day we find a hairbrush. We kill some more people, we go back out, we find a locket. We kill some more, like, there's no continuity to it whatsoever.
No.
So, again, it is 12th, but I do find that I'm a little nicer to it than everybody else, but it is still an atrocious movie.
Now, having said that, it won 2 awards. The 2006 winner for the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards for Worst Film.
Yeah.
And the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards as Least Scary Horror Movie.
Yeah.
So,
there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well deserved on all parts.
There we go. All right. Well, next up on the list is going to be Hills Have Eyes. This one was released on March the 10th of 2006. It had a budget of $15 million with a box office of $70 million. It has a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb. So, again, 52% and 6.4, that's pretty high rating in comparison to, again, some of these others. And it's up there, 6.2 right up there with Texas Chainsaw and, some of these others. So,
and I gave it a 5. I rated it number 5. It was, there's some hard to watch stuff in there, and you'll see in a minute that not everybody's a fan of rape or it.
If anybody raises their hand and says, I'm a fan of rape, you probably want to get away from them.
No.
So,
But I thought there's some of it that's just hard for me to watch. I didn't like the whole rape thing. But I thought one of the most unsettling things in the movie, and I don't know why this bothers me so bad, when they just, set Ted Levine on fire. And I don't know why that bugged me so much. I think because of him screaming, the panic and everything, I was just like, it was horrifying. I thought overall they pulled off the movie well. I thought they had better explanation for why they were who they were versus just the inbred cannibal crazy people that the original had them at. This one actually gave a reason to it with, atom, the nuclear war and all these things, all, the atom bomb and, radiation exposure and stuff. And it did lend a sense of truth to it that the other one didn't have. You were just like, just inbred idiots. But I thought it was fairly well done. And I think the actors did well. The script wasn't bad, but it was like I said, it's middle of the road for me. I like it okay. I mean, it's something I'd probably watch again, but I wouldn't watch it repeatedly or anything. But I thought they honored the original to a certain degree.
For me, this is the second movie on our little list of movies that I thought was better than the original. Personally.
Yeah.
And I'm not even that big a fan of this movie. So before everybody's like, oh wow, this must have been rated really high for you. No, it was like 9 for me. I didn't feel like that, and I know it's sacrilege for all you Wes Craven fans out there. I didn't think that the original was a very good movie. It had some great scenes in it.
Yeah, had Michael Berryman.
Who did a fantastic job, and Dee Wallace in it, who was also fantastic in it. But I am not a fan of torture porn, and there are some scenes in the original, and there's some scenes in this that is pretty much what it equates to. And you lose me whenever you go over the top with some of this stuff. And of course, I'm sure some of you are saying, but you love Friday the 13th? Yeah, but
there's a difference between that's brutal murders. It's a slasher versus your intent is to kill somebody, but your intent to do that is to make it as painful and last as long as possible.
Exactly. Yes. See,
that's
Jason is more like a force of nature. He's not in it for the glory of the kill or to make you suffer for a long time. This movie right here, there was some legit scenes where they had left that guy screaming on that fire for 5 minutes.
That's a good 2-minute scene.
And it was done deliberately
to draw the family out so he could. It was terrible.
And I just, like I said, while I think it is a better movie than the original, for me personally, I'm not a big fan of either one of them, just because they go a little bit too far for me. The same thing with The Last House on the Left that Wes Craven did. That movie went way over the line for me. And of course, we're getting off on a whole other tangent that I won't even go down, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Well, it is my one that I absolutely loathe on this list. So it's 12 out of 12 for me. I've never liked this movie. I certainly didn't like the remake. I just absolutely can't watch the rape scene. And I think not just because it's rape, but because they go after one of the youngest members in the family. And I just, like, it just, when you have kids, you think differently.
Different set of eyes on stuff.
Yeah. So that I just absolutely cannot do. And to me, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies all the way around. I just can't watch it. Like, he rewatched it again before we did this, and I watched maybe the last, 20 minutes, maybe. Probably. Like, I just don't like it. And, you know, I definitely didn't want to rewatch it because of the rape scene. So, you know, I kind of skipped out on watching it again. But I did watch the last 20 minutes again, and I feel the same way I used to feel. So, it's just, I'm out on it all the way around.
Before we move on, I did want to ask a question to all y'all, because I think one thing that we're not addressing that I think some of the people that have watched our previous one and was asking for this might want to know is what our stance is on remakes in general. None of us have actually addressed that at all.
I'm not a fan, never have been a fan, never will be a fan. I think the whole problem with that for me is it's not that you remade something that I held so near and dear. I'm like, if there is an original idea that busted up through Hollywood, it would be the fastest trip around the skull that there ever was. Nobody, I don't know if it was they were trying to, like you said, draw back in an audience to a classic movie to try and broaden that to a younger audience. I don't know if that was because people just didn't think. I don't know what it was. I mean, I don't think it's necessary. Now, having said that, there's a lot of people that loved it. And there's some of these I like better than the originals, but I would much rather see an original idea piece of work than I would a remake.
Well, for me personally, I think remakes are necessary. We wouldn't have Friday the 13th continuing on to this day if it wasn't for the remake. We wouldn't have pretty much all the things that you see sequels to have been remade at one point or another, and it's to restart it for a different audience because, let's face it, we're old, okay?
Well, now, having said that, I'm not a fan of sequels either.
Yeah, well, I am.
I think when you start, you have the original, and then shit goes downhill quick. Yeah, I mean, it's like great, that's good, and then it gradually, you know, I don't want to, I mean, I'm not going to bang on anything in particular, but there's a few that, it's like, I love Halloween 78, and that franchise is a disaster.
Well, my big thing is, and this has always bothered me when I've seen this on the internet, I see it a lot more now than I used to, is this whole concept of, they're just trying to cash in on the franchise, they're just trying to make money, you know. Isn't that the purpose of every movie ever made in the history of cinema?
I think a lot of remakes too, and we see it a lot with these, such as, we've already talked about a couple, like Hills Have Eyes. We'll take the rape scene for instance. That's not in the original from the 70s. But in 2005, rape has been touched on a little more. I don't want to say it's more socially acceptable because it's not acceptable in any. But you know what I mean? Like, no, talking about it and shedding a light on it.
More social
awareness. Yes, and so I feel like when they remake stuff, a lot of these are bringing more awareness to a lot of those things.
More
now,
modernization.
Is it necessary to put that in there? No, it's absolutely not, because I mean, there's several of these where they changed the storyline in that way, and I rate them very lowly. But I mean, I do think that's a big part of why we remake is one, to make money, but I don't think it's just like, oh, Nightmare on Elm Street's been good in the past, let's redo it. I think someone came along and they seen the original, and I think first and foremost you have to be a fan And I think it's a passion project for a lot of them, and they change it. And
Modernization.
maybe not that they can necessarily do it better, but this is their vision of it, and I don't have a problem with remakes doing that. Now, when you make a piece of trash that completely ruins the original, along with ruining your remake, which some of them have the potential to do that, that's a lot. Like The Fog, for instance.
Yeah.
Like we said, The Fog is not a great movie. The original. It's a good movie, but it's not a great movie. So when people watch 2005, they're like, this movie sucks. Let's go watch the original. And then you kind of sheds that light on that like, the original no longer has the nostalgia and it's not as good as we thought. That movie really shed a negative light on both, and it was unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my issue, instead of just broad blanket statement, my issue is I don't like a frame by frame remake. Psycho
did that.
Yeah.
That was a frame. I mean, that's
Cabin Fever was a frame for frame, word for word. The script was the exact same. Just and that made like 3 years later.
That thing that drives me nuts. I don't think that's do your own version of it or whatever. I think my problem if you're hurting the franchise, I don't like it at all. Not in the least little bit. If you're trying like Justin said, if it's a passion project where you love what X movie so much, do your thing, man. And if you do, hopefully you succeed. But just don't bring down an iconic franchise. I mean, you look at some of the Friday the 13th fan films, and they're incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's room for it.
Well, the thing about it is, in my opinion, is that if you have something new to say, that's whenever I'm all. Even if it's bad, even if you make a bad movie, if you're trying to do something different, trying to say something different, I'm all for it. Like you said, though, if you're just like, you know what, Psycho made a lot of money, let's just redo that and not change anything. You're not trying to say anything new. You're just trying to just modernize it, I guess. Yeah. I don't know why that movie just confuses the hell out of me. Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to ask that question. I knew that there would be people out there that would be wondering what we thought about
what the impetus was for all this nonsense.
All right. So Hills Have Eyes for me, because I didn't go over mine, was number 3. I don't dislike this movie. Now, yes, the rape scene is hard to watch, and actually when I rewatched it the other day, I just fast forward through that part because it is. But, like the grisly, gory, that doesn't really bother me, and I really enjoy this one more than the original, basically just because of the mutants' look. Yeah. Like we were saying, they're actually deformed, and I don't dislike this one. I mean, that's just my, I fast forward through the rape scene because that part bothers me too, but as a whole, I don't dislike this one.
I mean, almost every movie on this list has some positive attribute.
For the most part. We'll get into one here that you won't feel that way about in just a minute.
We're getting real close, I'm pretty sure.
Before we do that, we've got Black Christmas. Now, this one was released actually on Christmas Day, December the 25th of 2006. It had a budget of $9 million with a box office of $21.5 million, sitting at a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 4.7 out of 10 on IMDb.
And that's
so you talk about a religious persecution of a movie. This movie, oh my goodness, because it was released on Christmas, not only was it a horror film on Christmas, but we have what we will get into in a minute, but it's the what happens in this movie. So, I mean, it's just absolutely, I mean, this, to be rated as highly as it is, blows my mind.
Yeah, it's, when I'm sitting here looking at this is my 10th rated movie.
You're being generous.
And I am. And honestly,
I was more generous.
I mean, yeah, you were more generous.
I mean, the only, and honestly, it's terrible. I'll be honest with you. This, I don't care whose movie it is. Halloween 2, I love Halloween 2, the original. I love that movie. But I'm going to tell you, if you feel, I'm an old, burnt out, beat to death ER nurse. Been doing this shit for almost 40 years. I've worked nights for almost all those years. I have never been in the hospital one time where there were 3 patients, 1 nurse, a dying baby, 2 killers, and a cop. Every scene of this movie in the hospital was an absolute joke. And the whole premise of where the baby came from, You know, then the weirdness of him surviving upstairs, living in the attic, living in the walls, the cookie cutter, let's make mama cookies. I mean, I hate this movie. I hate it. I don't have anything else. I hate this movie. I just do. It's a turd.
Yeah. Now, I've mentioned this to everybody that listened to me at this table. This corner in this movie is the worst corner in the history of corners. He called 2 people dead that weren't dead.
At the same time.
At the same time. And said, hey, bag them up. We're good.
Let's put the killers in the ER.
There was so much to not like about this movie. And I'm not even one of these big, everything's got to make sense. It drives Carl crazy that sometimes I can let stuff go. I can be like, for the sake of the movie, we'll just skip over the fact that didn't make any sense. But there's so many lapses that you just got to take a leap on in this movie that I can't do it. I can't. There's only so much I can be like, okay, I'll just pretend that didn't happen. It's just not good.
It's just crap.
There's red herrings in it that go nowhere. Remember that girl that was in it for like 5 minutes that gave the girl the weird gift and then never saw her again?
Until she shows up, she don't know where
she shows up at the top of the tree.
It's just her head.
Yeah, and then she's like, it's a jewelry box or a music box.
It's very obvious they were like, oh, she could be the girl.
Yeah.
That was very obvious, but then they never followed up on it at all. And then I'm just like, it's just terrible.
Yeah.
The lapses in judgment in this movie.
The lapses in film
are remarkable. But anyway, I think I've bashed it enough. I will move on. Please continue.
It was pretty bad. It was 9th out of 12th on my list. But it's pretty bad. And when you think about some of the scenes in this movie and, the guy poking the tiles out of the bathroom to look and I'm like, there's not even that much room between the joist and that's
He's
not even realistic. Where
I just want to say the only reason why they did that scene is so you can see that girl's butt in the shower.
Exactly.
That's the only reason that scene
existed. Ridiculous.
If I was a 12-year-old boy, I'd be doing that.
Well, if you can fit through that floor joist in that tile,
But he had enough room to build it. You have a construction crew.
Yeah, and the way that he just, I don't know, moves through the house in between the walls, and then it's just,
it's stupid.
It's just dumb. And then the whole, you don't know if that's your brother or your dad, or it's just freaking weird.
Is it mama, sister?
I'm
sister,
I'm out.
Yeah, this one was 9 out of 12 for me too. Just again, the first one is very creepy with the guy keeping on calling and the heavy breathing, and then you take this one, and again we take a subject matter that is completely just didn't even need to be done, didn't need to go there. You could have remade this movie without that, and it would have been perfectly fine. But again,
without most of it,
even the hole in the floor and all that, it doesn't make sense. There's lots of stuff in horror movies that don't make sense, but you add that subject matter into it. We won't even get into that, but you add that subject matter into it, and this one spirals down the drain faster than
a turd going straight.
Faster than a lead turd.
Things continue to pound on it. You know what I mean?
And you can let go of the whole movie down.
You can let go of one thing there, but whenever you start to just continually stack stuff that makes no sense on top of each other,
and I love how when we rip out eyes, we rip out the entire thing. Like we've got we've got everything. Everything. Like this just didn't make any sense. So
terrible.
All right, moving on. This one's getting a little long, so we'll try to get through these last few as quickly as we can. But the next one on our list is Rob Zombie's Halloween. This will be Carl's absolute favorite. This was released on August the 31st of 2007 with a $15 million budget, making $80 million at the box office, 28% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 6 out of 10 on IMDb.
Nice.
Now, we will remind Carl before we get into this that we can't drop F-bombs all the time on YouTube, so please go easy with your review of Rob Zombie's Halloween here, because we know you love it.
Okay, I hate this movie. Why do I hate it? Well, let me get into this real quick. First of all, The 78 is my absolute favorite horror movie of all times. As I said at the beginning of this, there's a lot of sentimentality to this, but I'm an old fart and I'm sentimental, and it's just the way it's going to be. But John Carpenter's version of this was very atmospheric. It was creepy. It was eerie. There was no bloodbath. And quite frankly, I think it's scary as hell that one day a 6-year-old kid wakes up, flips a switch in his head, stabs his sister to death for no known reason. That's scary. Rob Zombie's version did what happens every day all over the country now. We build our monsters with systematic abuse, neglect, drugs, whatever. And I didn't think that part was scary at all. I didn't think the character needed that backstory. And I think Rob Zombie defers back to poor white trash every chance he gets in every movie he gets. I think the language was inappropriate for the girls for the time frame that this was supposed to have taken place in. Am I a prude? No, I cuss like a sailor, darling. I got more adjectives than I know what to do with. But now having said that, while I'm in the middle of my bitch fest, I think it was great. It was filmed great. I think to this day, throughout the entire franchise, one of the best parts of any of the Halloween movies I've ever seen is when Tyler Mane figures out that old girl's up in the attic, and he just looked around, picked up a 2x4, and beat the ceiling out of the house. That's horrifying to me. I don't know why. I think because he's so big and powerful, and just the idea that I'm going to get you no matter, I'll tear the damn world apart to get to you. I thought that was great. I thought the part where he pulled the picture out and was trying to say, hey, look, it's me. I'm your brother. I'm trying to reconnect with you. You know, I've killed a half dozen people and been through hell to try to find my baby sister. I thought that was cool. I thought that most of that movie for me was just unwatchable. And I hate to say that because, having said that, at the same time, I don't care what movie I dislike or I trash. I've said this on the internet a million times. If that's your favorite movie, nothing makes me happier than to know that everybody out there's got a favorite movie. If this happens to be yours, I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. But if that makes you happy, that's the only thing that matters to anybody. Is somebody loves it passionately as I love the first one, then I'm glad. It makes me happy to know you got that. But I don't know. I just don't think it needed the backstory. I didn't think it needed all of the crap that systematically built the killer when the original Michael Myers just became. That's my abbreviated roasting of Halloween.
Well, I liked it moderately more than he did. I'm going to try and make this brief. I look at Rob Zombie movies like, let's say John Carpenter is the equivalent of a 57 Chevy, brand new. And I look at Rob Zombie like a old beat up Ford truck, okay? It doesn't mean he's bad, it just means he has a different style. And he's got a style that I don't care for. Doesn't mean, like Carl said, for those of you that love his movies, more power to you. I'm glad that you love them. It's just not my thing. And he makes all of them like that. I can't think of a movie that he's made where it's middle America. It's all seems to be...
Yeah. 31. Now, having said that, I thought 31 was great.
But it's the same aesthetic. I mean,
it is.
It's all the same aesthetic.
Always going to be there. That is who he is.
Yeah.
That is where he's happy. That's his home base.
Yeah.
And that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm not going to go on a rant about it. I thought there were pieces of this movie that were fantastic. Well, superiorly done, actually. But the pieces don't make a whole for me. They're just pieces of a good movie. Could have been a good movie. But for me, it didn't make it.
Never reached its destination.
But like I said, I know that me and you are probably going to get severely roasted for saying bad things about it. Because I know people that this is their favorite movie.
He's very polarizing. You love him or you hate him.
Yeah, and for those of you that love his movies, more power to you. And
I apologize for hurt your feelings.
But he is not my cup of tea. And I'll leave it at that.
This was a 7 on my list. I didn't hate it. I am not really a Halloween fan. I know. I know.
This will be our last
I
podcast.
know, right? I told you I was going to
Y'all
disagree
were
with you
so
on a lot. Yeah, it's just not my favorite. But if you're talking about something that's, I mean, to me, the Rob Zombie version was not scary, and that says a lot
It
because
was mean spirited.
Yeah.
I love watching this freaking news.
the original was scary for me.
Yeah.
And
Suspense.
you know, there wasn't really anything I jumped at in this one, which is unusual for me. And I had seen it, you know, before. I did rewatch it for this episode, but I had seen it before, and it's just okay. I mean, there's nothing great about it for me. So
This was the same for me, a 7 out of 12. Again, nothing great about it. I don't agree that we had to have the child, you know, the backstory of Michael and being in the penitentiary and not talking and kind of talking at first to Loomis and then kind of shutting off. But I do think that if he was going to go down that road, he did it well. I do think it was done a little too long.
Yeah.
That portion of the movie was like almost an hour long.
They could have
it could have
edited that
been 30 minutes and still have been just as good. You know, I do like how he kind of found the mask, and it does have that weathered look.
Yeah.
But for me, I think this film, and it's the same, I think I said it about Texas Chainsaw, if you give him a different mask and you call this He Comes on Halloween, this is going to be so much more well received by fans. Because
if it was a standalone, it would have been a great movie.
Then they look at it and they say, this rips off Halloween, but it doesn't have that Halloween name attached to it to drag it down.
Mm-hmm. Much like Halloween 3.
That's the big thing with this one. Like, I don't think it's a horrible movie. I definitely think it leaves a lot of things. It almost goes too in-depth on some things while not going far enough in-depth and finishing the story in others. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I think if it had a different title, I think it would have been a lot better and more well-received all the way around. So, next up on the list is going to be the 2009 release for My Bloody Valentine. This comes out on January the 16th, just in time for Valentine's Day, with a budget of $14 million, a box office of $100.7 million, a 62% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 5.4 out of 10 on IMDb.
I rated this my number 4, and I don't know, I could have went back and forth between 3 movies. I liked it. I thought it was pretty well done. Having said that, I don't like 3D stuff. It drives my eyes crazy. I could have done without that part of it, but I thought the storyline was good. You know, it was a well done movie, and am I going to watch it all the time? Probably not, because there you go again. I am sentimentally attached to the original because, you know, when you're old as I am, you get memories attached to things, and the memory is more to you than the movie. But I thought it was very well done, and I'd watch it again. I didn't have any real big complaints. Now, some of the flashback scenes where they were cutting, like he's in the cage, he's not in the cage, he's walking down here, he's not, he's over there, he is the killer, he's not. That kind of got a little, I don't know, just confusing to me, but all in all, I thought it was well filmed. I thought it was well acted. I thought it was well cast, and I would watch it again. I thought it was, you know, a decent comparable, you know, or compatible version of the original.
I agree, and more so. It was my number 4, and I love the movie. I've watched it several times. Just for those that might or might not be keeping up with it, this is our second, I think, movie with a Winchester brother in it. This is Jared Padalecki. It's
Jensen Ackles.
Yeah, Jensen Ackles was the star of this one. Jared Padalecki was in House of Wax, and we're going to hear his name again real quick.
Just a minute.
For some reason, the Winchester brothers are in these movies a lot. But anyway, I liked the movie. I thought it was well done. I think that it respected the original while adding a few twists of its own.
I agree.
And that's what I think a remake should do. Respect where you come from, but add something new to the story. Give it your own twist, you know. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
Well, it's my number 4 too. So does that slightly redeem me from the Halloween slander?
It does. Yeah, I'm all right with it now.
I actually liked this movie.
Have you seen the original?
I have. Yes,
Good deal.
a long time ago though. But yes, I have, and I actually really liked this movie. I thought it was really well written. Unlike you, it was a little hard to follow there for a bit, and it had me completely fooled.
It did
I'm
me
going to
too.
be honest.
It did me too.
I was completely not thinking that he was the killer.
Yeah.
I thought it was the husband. I did the
I
whole
did
time.
too.
I thought it was him. So, totally threw me for a loop at the end. But I mean, that's what a good horror movie does. So, I mean, yeah.
It
So,
did what it
did.
accomplished its mission.
Yep.
This one for me rated a little lower. I gave it an 8. That's not to say that I didn't like it or I thought it was a bad movie. Just again, some of the other stuff on this list. But for me, the reason it's so low is one of the main things is like Carl said, the 3D. I hate 3D movies. It made it look very unrealistic on the kills, and they just did that. Honestly, that portion of it, I feel like for a cash grab because 3D was on the rage
It
right then.
was. It was at a time there were like 3 or 4 movies out that were doing it.
And so I hated that portion of it, and I like how they added where Jensen Ackles was the killer, but I also hate it at the same time because it's like he is. What do we want to say? He is. He has the ghost. He's
like the spirit.
possessed. There we go. I can't think of the word. Like he is possessed by. And I didn't care for that too much. Like if they're going to make it a twist and make him be a killer, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
But it being kind of hard to follow, it going back and forth, and then the reveal with where like we said, he's in the cage when we see it, but then it shows, he's like, he kills the guy and then locks himself in the cage.
Yeah.
It was just kind of weird. It had a weird twist there at the end. And I'm all for twists, but just all that kind of added together, it rated number 8. I still liked the movie.
Yeah.
I just thought for me personally, there was 7 other movies a lot more. So, all right, next up, we're getting close to the end. We've got 3 left, so we're down to our final 3. We've got Friday the 13th. This was released February the 13th of 2009. It has a $19 million budget with a box office of $92.7 million. It has a 25% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it has a 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb. And kind of a little fun fact, which I'm sure Eric already knows this, but this is the second highest grossing film in the entire Friday the 13th franchise, only seconded to Freddy vs. Jason.
Exactly correct.
So that's kind of a little fun fact, because, I mean, that's...
It's my number 8, and honestly, it should be way higher than that.
Friendships are being severed tonight.
We're testing waters here.
Lose my number.
You know I love you. I think the problem I had with it was, honestly, there are 4 movies that are in my top 10 of all time, and that's why this got bumped down the list. I'll be honest with you, there's parts of this movie I don't like. All through the series, Jason has been a drowned mongoloid, and now suddenly he can build traps, run generators, dig a tunnel. I mean, and I know, he's been doing this for 4,713 years, and hell, he's learned something. But it just drives me crazy. I don't know. It just did. Now, having said that, the kills were great. I loved the fact that the fire, like you said earlier, when he walks past that fire.
He didn't walk, he runs.
Yeah, but
that was awesome.
But just
one of the only movies Jason runs.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, but to see him do that, that was just, I'm like, and then honestly, the aesthetic of the movie I thought was way better than most of them. Mm-hmm. I thought it was filmed really good, and I love the fact that he got his mask in this movie quick. I love that part. I don't know why. Just the mask is iconic for me. We waited till the 3rd movie for him to get it.
Absolutely.
And the way it kind of combined 1 and 2 together and then pushed 3 into it. I thought it was a very well made movie. I just wish that I could get my head around the traps and the alarm system and all that. But there again, it goes back to the sentimentality of what Jason was to me. Mm-hmm. And it's not fair to judge the movie that way because it's their spin, their take. Now, and like I said, it's honestly, it's a very good movie. It's a very well made movie. Now, one little side tangent that does irritate me is that those 2 movies ranked much higher than the first 2.
True. Mm-hmm. They do.
I'll hold that to myself.
As we all know, I'm a big Friday 13th fan. This was, believe it or not, this will shock some people. It was actually number 5 on my list, and that's not a knock on the remake of Friday 13th. It's that the other ones were just that good. Just that's all there is to it. But Friday the 13th, the remake, was very well done. I defy anybody to watch the first 15 minutes of that movie and tell me that sucks. Because it doesn't. When he's underneath that floor sticking that knife through, if you ain't on the edge of your seat, you ain't alive. It's well done all the way through. I thought, man, they made Jason really come to life, in my opinion. I think that was one of the best portrayals of Jason I've ever seen.
And who was it?
And that's Derek
Mears.
You know I know my crap. Anyway, okay.
But he was the, I think he was the most athletic
Yes.
and agile of all the Jasons.
I think he's the biggest.
He is.
Out of
And
all
I
of them.
thought, in my mind, through all the movies, one thing I never could get my head around was he never ran. He always walked. He always beat you where you were going. This resolved that. But just to see Jason run
Yeah.
and move the way I thought
He was
really
more
cool.
visceral in this movie. He had an intent that he did. In the other ones, he's more like a zombie. This one right here,
He had intent.
you could feel the anger coming off of Derek, in my opinion, anyway. I will say, just as a little note to people that are keeping up with boobs in movies, there is a Disney girl that shows her boobs in this movie. And so for those of you that are just completely horn dogs, keep that in mind. I will pass the torch on down.
Okay, so let's just start on that note. Why does every horror film have to have tits and sex in
Yeah,
them?
pretty much.
Why?
Because you're not going to get teenage boys in the movie.
That
Okay,
is the primary
This-
audience, girl.
I'll be honest with you. This is where this came from. And this is no joke. Back in the 70s, all the way up through the early 90s.
You can't go all the way. We ain't got much time.
Yeah,
so you
but
can't
this is
talk.
quick. There was no... These days, nobody had... Pornography is on... You can hit a porn site in 3.2 seconds on your cell phone. Those were the forbidden fruits. It was taboo in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, but it hasn't changed anything. Being able to get it on your phone, there's just as much now.
Yeah,
if not
but
more than
back
there ever
then,
was.
but that's
it
where it
hasn't changed
started.
anything.
Yeah,
But do you
that's
see
where
how
it
they
started.
changed the game though with new horror movies? They're like,
There's
okay,
just
everybody
more of
sees
it. Yeah.
everybody sees porn all the time now, so there's nothing special
Yeah.
about a pair of tits.
Which is
I know,
exactly why we
but
will get
somebody
into
that
next week.
somebody semi-famous though
Right.
shows theirs. People will tune in, and that's what they did. They went out and like, hey, Disney girl that was on what it was Disney Playhouse or whatever in like the early
Which
80s.
is why next week when we go over our film Mothershucker, we are proud to say there is nothing in there.
There
So
is
we
not.
are now the exception to the rule, and we are starting a brand new trend
There you go.
of nothing in a horror film except horror and kills and no sex,
Cussing.
no nudity.
God, I hope you're wrong.
Okay.
Anyway.
My Friday the 13th. That actually was number 3 on my list. So,
There we go.
I thought it was kind of cool the way it started out, and they actually were going to Camp Crystal Lake for a purpose, which was to find the weed,
Yeah.
and not just, let's go to Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah, it
There's
was
a killer
coherent.
there.
There
well, Jared was there to find
So-
his sister,
Yeah.
Well,
Jared Paldecki, but
After
everybody
in the
else
very
was
after the
beginning.
weed,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So anyway, that part I thought was cool, and then you've got all the little rich kids that think they're better than everybody else. Well,
Yeah,
they were the ones that were
yeah.
killed, so I'm okay with that.
Everybody was dying to see
Yeah,
that blonde
I
kid
mean,
get killed in that movie.
You know,
Oh, he was
yeah,
awful.
he was a prick. God, he played a good prick.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, I thought it was really, and I actually liked the fact that they had the tunnels and the different escape routes because normally there's like one way in, one way out.
Yeah.
You know, like they had different places and they had that little bus scene.
Yeah.
Like I thought
Yeah,
it was
yeah, it was
cool.
good.
It did
So-
explain things like how Jason beat you to the punch.
Yes.
Like Justin had said earlier.
Yes, and I liked how it showed him sharpening his machete and like, the different things. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, and when you think about it, I should take that back because you think about it in part 2 when he's got the house in the woods. I mean, he built that. So
Yeah. He knows how to use a hammer.
yeah,
You know,
use
he
a
was
hammer,
heads, but
he
you
can
know.
use a shovel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one was number 4 for me. I mean, I liked it. I think it's a good film. I like, how we go through kind of, like we said, 3 movies at once. We have Mother at the beginning with the flashbacks, then we have kind of Tater Sack Jason with what he starts out with the sheet wrapped around his head, and then we go into him getting his mask. I like the traps. I think it shows that, I'm here, I'm at this camp, and I've been here for 30 years, and I don't want anyone here, and I'm going to make sure there's a way, because while it happens in every horror film, It's almost like, you've got a killer chasing a teen in the woods, and it's like, this is 1,000 acres of woods, but I know right what tree you're going to be behind, and I'm going to kill you. So this one kind of explains all that, and I get why it's, why that would be kind of a trope that you don't like. But I actually enjoyed it. I thought it explained a lot. I thought it was well done. So I do like this one.
Yeah.
So next up, we have Nightmare on Elm Street. So this one was released April the 30th of 2010 with a $35 million budget and a $117.7 million box office, a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 5.2 out of 10 on IMDb. And you will be surprised to know that this piece of trash is actually the highest grossing out of the entire Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Doesn't surprise me.
That blows me away, people.
But you also have to think in the in 80s and 90s when those came out, I guess a movie ticket was what, like $4 or $5?
Yes.
And then in 2010, I mean, they're what, $7.50, $8 at that point.
They had doubled in price at that point.
You got to take that into account. But this
inflation.
is awful.
This is hot garbage. I'll be real quick with this. The makeup sucked, the plot sucked, the characters sucked. Jackie Earl Haley had no business being in this movie.
He's a good actor, too.
Yeah, he's a good actor, but he dropped a turd in this one.
Which is not completely his fault.
No, it's not. He was doing the best he can with what he had.
Well, you can only work with the script you're given. You know? I mean,
I didn't like it. I've never liked it. Hated the makeup. I'll leave that to Eric because Eric has a strong opinion about this makeup.
Yeah.
I don't like the movie. I can't find one redeeming quality about it whatsoever other than it ended and I loaned that Blu-ray to somebody and I never got it back. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah.
For me, it's 10 out of 12, so I can tell you
11 for me.
It's bad. Me and Carl have talked about this movie in advance, and I'm just going to tell you, any movie where you make the makeup look, he looked like a cat, okay? He looked like a cat with a hat on. And I mean, I actually watched the extras of this.
Green eggs and ham.
Yeah. I watched the extras where they explain, oh, yes, well, this is the most realistic look for Freddy there is because Freddy wouldn't have ears because the ears was melted. That would have been the first thing to melt off his face. I don't care. He looked like a cat. I can't take somebody seriously that's walking around looking like a cat with a hat on.
Yeah.
If any of y'all have ever seen the movie Sleepwalkers, he looked just like a sleepwalker. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
Yeah.
He looked just like him. He looked just like it. I'm like, the whole movie I was going, is he going to have sex with his mom here in a minute or something? Because that's what happens in that movie. And it's bad. The only thing good about that movie is Jackie Earl. I can't say his whole name.
Jackie Earl Haley.
What he said. And I mean, he wasn't good in the movie. He was miscast. He was just the best thing in the movie.
Yeah, he was miscast.
That being said, everybody was trying. The movie was well made. Just looked like crap on screen. That's all I can say about it. I will pass the torch because I don't want to talk about it no more.
I'm not going to say much about this one. I have it higher rated than y'all do. I have it as a 6 out of 12, which is probably really generous, but being that that's kind of what I had left, that's kind of where it landed. But
just throw that bitch there. That's all I
got. However, I didn't think it was absolutely horrible, but it definitely wasn't close to my fave. And I will say they did not have to put the spin on Freddy of being a pedophile.
No,
they could have
that bothered me.
that out.
They made the allusion to it in the original film. You knew he was a child murderer.
Yeah,
but the whole idea you made him a child.
You have officially made him a pedophile in this one, and that part could have been completely left out and would have been much better.
Yeah. So I gave this one an 11 out of 12. Same thing, you didn't have to make him that. And also, we just brainwashed all of our kids into not remembering this because no one remembers that they went to school together. No one remembers Freddy. They're just brainwashed.
Hey, you remember Freddy versus Jason? Hypno-Seal.
That just made absolutely no sense. I mean, in all honesty, on paper, this movie never would have worked. This movie never will work. It does not matter who you put under a Michael Jason mask. It doesn't matter because they are fully masked. They don't talk. As long as you can kind of get the movement down, you can have a competent film with one of those. But Freddy, that makeup is iconic to Robert Englund. The voice, because he's the only one that speaks, is iconic to Robert Englund. Anybody that you have that's not Robert Englund that plays that, it is going to fail. And that's just my opinion. Because we have what, 8 movies? Is it 7 or I think 8 movies is the original? You know, Friday the 13th, or not, good God, Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. And so, he played it in all of them.
Yeah.
And so when you come out and you're like, let's remake it, and you put somebody in there, Jackie Earle Haley's a good actor, but he had crappy makeup because it's not as iconic. And then they used the voice modulation when he talks as Freddy, which was just dumb. Like, Freddy didn't have any voice modulation when he talked. It was just Robert Englund. So that kind of takes it down too. So 11 out of 12. This one, I really struggled. I really went back and forth with this one and The Fog being my number 12. This is yeah.
It could have won either
I
way.
own it because I'm a completionist and because I like the Nightmare on Elm Streets. But I had actually only watched this one time until I rewatched it. And then I rewatched it and I was like, why did I keep this? So I'm actually contemplating selling it. It probably won't happen just because of the completionist, but we'll see. Anyways, last up on the list, and then we'll get off of here for this week, guys, is Fright Night. So this was released on August the 19th of 2011, making it the newest film on our list with a budget of $30 million with a box office of $41 million. So didn't make a whole lot.
Did not do well.
But it is rated pretty high with a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb.
All right, it's my number 3. I love this movie. I love the original. I always have. And we're going to Scarefest next month, and they have a Fright Night reunion, and you can guarantee I'm getting all the signatures and all the photos. I've just always had an affinity for this movie. I absolutely love it. I thought this was done really well. The only problem I had was, Peter, the vampire killer. I just didn't.
Peter Vincent, yeah.
I didn't like Peter.
Same thing with me. I didn't care for his casting.
I didn't think they played that character the way in all fairness, they didn't do it the way I wanted them to. Mm-hmm. Maybe that wouldn't, they weren't making my movie. Yeah. So I give them that. But I thought otherwise, Colin Farrell did a great job. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a really, really well made. It's a very appealing aesthetic movie.
Yeah, and Anton Yelchin, good God. Yeah. Talk about someone gone entirely too soon. He was such a great
he was on the rise.
Green Room, and he was great in pretty much everything he did, and so he is definitely something, in this one
he's
to
a
look out
force
for.
to be reckoned with, and it was. I really enjoyed it. It's like I said, it's my number 3, and it could have very easily been my number 2. It probably should have been, and. But then again, if it had Jennifer Beal and a wife beater, it'd probably been my number 1. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really well-made movie.
Well, for me, it was 1. And, I have a lot of love for both Fright Night movies.
Yes.
And
2.
Yes, and 2. Yes, I actually love part 2 almost as much as I love part 1.
Yep.
Which just for if anybody that owns a release company ever watches this, what in the hell are we doing with part 2? Why does it not have a Blu-ray?
I'm
just throwing that out there. So if anybody sees this, they probably won't. But if you do, what are we doing? Let me know. Drop a comment.
If all 12 of our viewers would please,
we need to know. I'm dying to know. What's the deal?
Good God, nothing
That's an amazing movie.
A freaking high def upgrade like that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm waiting. I've been waiting for years. Anyway, sorry, Eric. Continue.
No, you're fine. My thing about Fright Night, especially. I went into this expecting to hate it. I really did. When I watched it first time, I think I went to the theater and saw it. And I'm like, well, this is going to blow. Nobody can ever do justice like Chris Sarandon. That man exuded cool back then, you know.
Does.
And Colin Farrell killed it. I was like, dude's cool.
Yeah.
And he was very good as Jerry. I did miss the only thing I didn't like about the movie. I even liked the vampire killer. The only thing I missed was the fact that Jerry did not have a roommate.
Yeah, no Billy.
There was no Billy, and I wished that he had. He was good to play off of.
He was the man
in the original. Yeah, he was good.
The guy that kept Dandridge alive when he was asleep.
And he was a little bit of comedy relief, which I understand. This whole movie remake, there was a lot of comedy in it. So
McLovin.
McLovin was all over that movie, and but I loved every minute of this movie. I'm not going to say it's in my top movies or anything like that, but it's way up there. I really do enjoy it. Every time I see it on, I'll stop and watch it. So, moving on.
For me, it was not quite so high. It was a 5. And I think that's, I even told Justin when we started watching it, like, for me, like, when you have the original, like, drone shots, like, you have this subdivision out in the middle of nowhere in the desert. And then you've got, all these families missing, right? And then you've got, once we finally meet Jerry and kind of get putting pieces together, and he's like this construction worker at night, and then you see all these trapped rooms in his house, like, behind a hidden closet. And I'm like, what? Like, wait, you just invented this whole other side of a house that is hidden rooms with trap doors? Like, I don't know. That all just didn't make so much sense for me. No, it didn't jive for me. And so, yeah, it was kind of mediocre for me. But anyway, moving on.
So this one for me is kind of the same as what Lee said about Nightmare on Elm Street. I gave it 6. That was basically just because it's all I had left. I enjoy this film and probably should have rated it higher. In all honesty, I probably should have swapped it and Hills Have Highs. But regardless, I like it. I think it's a good film. My main issue with it is going to be Peter Vincent. I hated his casting. I didn't hate his character. I thought that him being the artifact collector and being into the vampire, but then when it comes time being the scaredy cat, I'm like, oh no, I don't want anything to do about it, but then being the eventual hero, I liked that. But whoever, I don't even know the guy's name who played him, but like, I was not digging his portrayal.
He was a Doctor Who, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you are correct, yes. I wasn't digging his portrayal, and that's just me personal. But like I said before, Anton Yelchin I thought did great. Colin Farrell was really good. So overall, I enjoyed the movie. It rated a little lower than, like I said, it probably should have. I probably should have swapped it in something else. But I enjoy it. I like it for what it is.
I'd watch it again.
So,
I've watched it several times.
For sure. So, alrighty guys. Well, that concludes this episode. That is the top 12 that we picked. There are 1,000,001 more. So if you guys want to see another episode just like this, drop some comments down below. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. And next week, we will be doing our episode, the big episode that we have been waiting to do, and we hope that you will all tune in for that. It will be our Mothershucker episode. The week after that, we should, hopefully, fingers crossed, as long as nothing happens, I will be getting my ass kicked live on YouTube again by Lee, my wife, as we do my September update, because I promised it wouldn't be as big, and
he lied.
It's pretty damn big. So, anyways, we appreciate everyone tuning in. We know this was a lengthy video. If you stayed till the end, we do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. I know it's touche to say that on YouTube, but it really is. Like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us. And
we want to hang around. We enjoy doing this.
And we can pull an Ava. Don't forget to smash that like button.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've always wanted to say this, and we'll be seeing you at the movies.
There you go. So
I'm antisocial as hell.
All right, guys. Well, we do appreciate it, and we will see you next week again as we all sit down and talk Mothershucker on Welcome to Horrorland next week. Thanks, guys.
Get here for
Peace out, guys.